Kirby Smart always knows what to say.
This is Locked On Sports Atlanta, and it's time for the Atlanta Football Party, only on Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Welcome into the Atlanta Football Party, your home for the best Georgia Bulldogs football talk. It's local insight you can't get anywhere but right here at Locked On. I'm your host, Tenitra Batiste. Alongside me are Jarvis, Davis, and Brian Gebhardt. Today's episode is brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use code LOCKEDONCollege for $20 off your first purchase. Terms do apply. And of course, our Atlanta Football Party is part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So apparently everything is bigger, but not better in Texas, especially in 2025. And a GOAT was denied access. And yes, toe doesn't meet leather for another 6 Saturdays. But Kirby Smart and company at the podium today made it feel like college football was back. So Jarvis, Brian, SEC Media Days are absolutely upon us. First up to the mic today, Carson Beck, Kirby Smart, Michael Williams, Malachi Starks. So you've got coach, you've got players, but man, coach said so much that we've just got to dive right into what Kirby Smart said at the podium in Arlington today. Jarvis, what was the biggest takeaway for you from what Coach Kirby Smart said today?
When you think about what Kirby Smart has done in college football, just in the last 5 years, right? Because we've seen the process in his 9 years being a head coach of this team. So I think for me, the big thing for him and just with this whole new NIL era is the whole retention piece. And he really prioritizes that to the point where you almost think it's just as important as recruiting, right? Because those are some of the things that he talked about when you're talking about like the type of guy that's like motivated by money. And I love how he kind of speaks to NIL. I feel like he has the blueprint as to how college football coaches should view it now. Not the old school days or, oh, kids shouldn't be getting paid, blah, 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 Dabo Sweeney. But he's kind of in the mindset of, yes, this is a big part of it because I'm making 7 figures. I'm not concerned about money. But what about this kid who's a 5-star dude and his whole family is counting on him to provide, send money back and he have to come by pay out of pocket for his parents or whoever, family members, if he might even have a child that he has to take care of. So you have to take yourself out of it, take yourself out of the situation and say, you know what? Instead of me looking at it from the old school way, I'm putting on some new set of glasses and saying, you know what? This kid might be making a decision for his family as a whole, not just himself. So I have to look at it from that perspective, and he's been moving up like that accordingly when it comes to getting guys in there and making sure those players that demand that type of NIL money, they stick around.
And outside of the players and certain ones that'll come up and come through, and like Carson Beck getting a Lambo and all of that, Kirby Smart is going to be the face of the NIL era because it's primarily going to be in football and in basketball. And he is the biggest, most important head coach now with Nick Saban retiring in the country. So what he says and stuff like this and how he projects it and his view on it and how he embraces it and brings it in, that's going to be really important to how this all plays out because, Greg Sankey in the SEC and the rest of the SEC are going to kind of not exactly go with what Kirby says, but he's sort of the leader in that room. I mean, even Lane Kiffin spoke about that too. Like he's the guy in that room now. So what he says, that leadership is really important. I know he's got a football program to run and everything, but how this moves nationally, Kirby's going to be a big piece of this.
Yeah, and I think you make a great point because everything from the moment Kirby Smart stepped onto the podium was very well thought out. And let me just qualify what I'm saying. Everything Kirby Smart says and does is always well thought out, but I think this was more of a moment where it says, hey, I understand I'm king of the hill. I understand that what I say and what I do is not just watched by the SEC, but it is watched by the totality of college football. So I think you guys both made great points that he knew exactly what he was saying when he was laying the foundation of his philosophy on how to approach NIL, among other things.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, and I think that, for overall, this is how things should go. you should take yourself out of these situations because it's easy for college coaches, who've been in it for a while, Dabo Swinney, that for you to kind of say, okay, this is not right. This is all they're going to be about, and I loved it when he stood up for all college football student athletes. Right, he said, I don't think that guys are driven by money. I think that's an insult. He put that thing, he deaded that thing right then and there. So that just lets you know that Kirby is all about the player. When you have these guys who might be motivated by money, they talk to Kirby. He said, "Hey man, here's what I could do for you. Not only what you could do for me, as far as add to my recruiting class, help me keep the salary, help me take care of my family and living this certain lifestyle that I provided for them as a college football coach, but they're going to be able to get some out of the relationship too. I'm going to be a better player. I could potentially get to the NFL." And he's concerned about my well-being overall, not just what he can do for me. So yeah, I think people need to understand that that's the big piece as to why Kirby is where he is right now. Like T said, king of the hill.
Yeah, and BG, just before we move on to hear about what your biggest takeaway was, just want to add to that's what former coach Nick Saban said. Obviously, the SEC network, which broadcasts SEC Media Days, allows for some reaction to comments. And he said, yeah, that's the thing that he liked. One of the things that he liked most, that Kirby was really driving the point home about development, player development, and the fact that attrition, part of the reasons it's not a big issue for them, even in the NIL era, is because they can show and prove about development of the player and all the players going to the NFL or going into coaching or the like, or the person, and so many guys who are successful long after their days in Athens. But BG, what was one of your biggest takeaway from Kirby's comments this morning?
Yeah, my biggest takeaway is what he didn't say today, or what wasn't asked. It was shocking that no one brought up the driving stuff. And you may not have gotten an answer. And Kirby's as we just talked about, he's very prepared. He's always very good with coach speak things when he needs to go that way and answer a question without answering the question. So I was just shocked that no one asked him. Now they have all these other smaller breakout rooms, and there's a good chance he gets asked that then. And I know people, you get your one question, it might want to be football related, and I understand that, but for no one to ask about the driving situation and what's been happening in the offseason is just a weird look. And then I also thought, I was actually surprised that Kirby didn't just address it almost right away. Like he kind of made a joke about Greg Sankey, and he talked about Nick Saban. And then I thought he was going to go right into the driving thing, because normally he's the one, let me address the elephant in the room, the biggest issue, let me hit it head on. And then, we can go from there. So I'll be interested to see some of the other comments that come out, because someone's going to ask in some room at some point about it.
Yeah, like you said, throughout the course of the day, there's some scrum, for lack of a better term, where reporters get to pull Kirby to the side and a side room. There are also some one-on-ones that Kirby will obviously grant requests to. So yeah, we'll definitely be watching and waiting to see what he said. But that was probably one of my biggest takeaways as well. He didn't address it in his opening remarks, and nobody asked the question. So yeah, we'll be looking out, eyes and ears on that one. But one more thing that I wanted to add, because I also had that takeaway that you had, Jarvis, as well as what you had, BG, is I love that he said, when the question was kind of posed about kind of motivation, and he addressed it and then addressed it again, and he said, quote, "There's no chip on our shoulder. I have never used failure as motivation." I really like that, because he said it consistently. Like, he'll allude to the fact that, yeah, we know we lost last year, and we know we missed out on the opportunity for a three-peat, but he's probably gone harder in the paint more often than not about saying that failure is not what motivates them. They don't really have a chip on their shoulder. And I like it, because the thing that was said again in the reaction show, or the reaction segment, was, hey, they're the hunted. And I chuckled and I said, apparently you guys haven't been listening to Kirby, because Kirby has said over and over again, they hunt. So that tells me that that's where their motivation is, to get out there. Even when they're on the road, they see it as hunting. And I think that's probably the right way to go about it. So that was probably my biggest one. And also one more thing, every week in the NFL is like that. That's what his response was to the question about Georgia's tough road schedule. Again, alluding to our program and what we have to go through gets you prepared for going to the next level.
Yeah, humility is a week away. especially in the SEC. So and I love the fact that when you talk about not using failure as a motivation, because it's hard to preach failure when the last time Georgia lost a regular season game? What 2020? Right?
Yeah,
Like,
yeah.
well, like, come on. So what are
Right.
you really preaching, right? So it has to be all about the process. When you are on this level, you're talking about guys like, oh yeah, we're gonna go undefeated, and it's gonna come down to whether or not we make it to the playoffs and whether or not we win the SEC championship. Like, come on, man. Like, the standard is so high.
Yep.
So it's hard to say, oh yeah, we lost this SEC championship last year, we're gonna get Jalen Milroe. Man, whatever, man. We need to do what we do. We need to do what we need to do on a weekly basis. And then once we stack up those wins and get to a point where we feel like we're comfortable enough to go out there and compete for an SEC championship, then hey, we got to start back over again, because it's a different game and it's a different week.
Yeah.
Man, I'm up here sounding like Kirby, man.
And if he changes,
I like a coach.
if he changes that message too, right? Like if they say they run the table and win it all and go undefeated and win the Natty, which is definitely in the realm of possibility, then you can't go back to, all right, what are you going to go to next year? Because now you're building off success, and that's what it was 2 years before that. And it's a lot of these same guys in the locker room. So yeah, to that point, I like that he brought that up and the way that he spoke about it, T. So good point there.
And you said you had something fun too, like just another fun takeaway. And he did say some funny things. He showed the personality.
Mm-hmm.
Kind of, I said he was kind of warming up the room, if you will, with how he approached the presser.
We always like to live vicariously through people, right? And we always talk about how much money all these coaches make. Man, it was pretty funny when he was just like, yeah, my kids, they're on trips in Croatia and Fiji, and I got someone in Amsterdam. And it's like, they're not going to summer camp in Chattanooga or something, right? It's not like, like I was like, oh, this is a different, we went to Cooperstown. So it's just funny to be like, that's right, you do make a lot of money and your family should enjoy it. So it's just funny just being like, I just remember a different trip when I was 15 or 16. So but you just for that money,
BG, the man said he had to look at a globe to see where his kids are. What?
What? Yeah.
They're not even on the same trip. One's in Croatia, one's in Fiji.
I was like, yeah. In the words of that philosophical genius Kendrick Lamar, they not like us. They
not like us
at all. Listen, we always think about everything being bigger in Texas, but maybe not better, especially in 2025. We'll go between the hedges to discuss. This episode of our Atlanta Football Party is brought to you by eBay Motors. So passion, drive, patience, those are all winning championship formulas, and that's what keeps your ride or die alive. Kirby Smart talked about the passion to get back at it this fall, talked about the drive to win another national championship, and obviously they've had to have patience from last season to this season to be able to focus to get it done. Now, eBay Motors does the same thing because they want to keep your ride or die alive. They want to have a winning championship experience for you in your car, maintaining your vehicle and leveling it up to peak performance. So superchargers, roof racks, exhaust kits, LED headlights, and like I told you guys, seat covers that will help you with speed, power, or style. Have even purchased brake kits from eBay Motors because they have you covered with over 122 million parts for your ride or die. You'll find exactly what you're looking for because with eBay Guaranteed Fit, your parts guaranteed to fit your ride every time or your money back. With eBay, you're burning rubber, not cash. So for all the parts you want at the prices you want, make your car the MVP by going to ebaymotors.com. Now, eligible items exclusions apply, and eligible items only are covered under that ride or die guarantee that we mentioned. So eBay Guaranteed Fit only is available as well to U.S. customers. Again, check it out at ebaymotors.com. Now, at the end of the opening remarks at the first ever SEC Football Media Days in Texas, BG Commissioner Greg Sankey slid in that the 2025 event will be returning to the College Football Hall of Fame right here in Atlanta next July. So for you, Brian, what's good about that event returning to what we like to call the center of the college football universe?
Selfishly, I can just go. It's just right down the street that we can just, all three of us probably wind up going. It's just so much easier to make that happen and then have the rest of your day, because the way that these are set up, this stuff's really done by like 3-4 o'clock in the afternoon. if you're Central Time in it too, it's like 2-3 o'clock when these things wrap up. So it's gonna be really nice to have it back here. It is kind of cool when it's right next to the College Football Hall of Fame too. So it's like kind of all encompassing, and it's stuff that the fans can actually do, because when the fans come, it's just weird, right? You're just kind of standing there and you can see people walk by, but that's all you can really do when it's in Hoover, or when it's in, I don't know what they've got set up in Dallas. Maybe there's some interactive stuff or whatever. So I like the event personally when it was in Atlanta, and selfishly I can go. So I think it's gonna be good. I'm surprised that they didn't go to another place before coming back to Atlanta, since they did Nashville, they did Dallas. I figured they would do one more before they got back Atlanta in the rotation. But yeah, this has just turned into the Super Bowl. So whoever's in the conference next will be going there.
Yeah, I kind of thought the same, because not that it is in Austin per se, with Texas coming to the conference, but it is somewhere in the, I guess, the stratosphere of Austin. So yeah, I thought it was kind of interesting that they wouldn't at least try to maybe take it to Oklahoma. But then again, you probably are thinking this, real talk. You put it in Dallas, at the end of the day, you're halfway to Oklahoma anywhere. You're talking about a couple, maybe like 3 hours of a travel max. So maybe they kind of saw that as their ode to Texas and Oklahoma, and then, hey, we return it right back to Atlanta. But yeah, Jarvis, I'm with Brian. I like it being right here, because this is all things college football here in Atlanta, all intents and purposes. I think that we are an amazing host city. Nothing against you, Arlington and Jerry World, but I do think that this is one of those places where everyone just kind of descends upon Atlanta for the very points that Brian mentioned. In addition to the press conference itself, there's so many other things that we have here to offer the college football experience and the college football fan.
This is the capital of college football. So why did you leave in the first place? That's my whole question. Come on, man. What are we doing here? Like, this is not difficult. This is not something that should be, well, maybe we should take No, it needs to be exactly where it is, right here in Atlanta. So yeah, I'm glad that it's coming back, and just like the SEC Media Days should be in Atlanta, the SEC Championship should remain in Atlanta. Greg, I know for the foreseeable future it'll be there, but hey, it should be in there until we all leave this doggone place.
Right. That's actually a great call too. BG, you gonna say?
Oh, I was just going to say, right as you said that, just made me think, I wonder how many conversations Jerry Jones has tried to have with Greg Sankey, just for that reason of how much money is it going to take for me to get at least one SEC champion? Because it's going to happen. He's going to make that happen. Right. He'll make that. That'll happen before the Cowboys win a Super Bowl, and maybe that'll.
Hands down, that would be his Super Bowl.
That'll be what it is. Yeah.
Yes.
Cowboys catch praise.
We were talking a little bit earlier about the whole recruitment and retention piece, and we know that UGA was rolling in June, and they also started July off with a pretty big bang, Jarvis. And we heard just Sunday that Sumter High 4-star safety Rashad Johnson announced his commitment to UGA football. So again, how good is it to see the Dogs land just another strong addition to the secondary for the class of 2025? And I have to keep saying that because we know we entered June and they were wondering about that whole secondary, and now it's starting to become an embarrassment of riches.
Yeah, for sure. When you think about what Rashad brings to the table, the young man is a guy who's you've seen the development. His high school coach talking about how he was a wide receiver, and coming in as a freshman, then kind of convinced him to play safety. And I was just like, man, I wish I can make a PSA to all of those young teenage boys out here trying to be like Chad Johnson or Randy Moss and all that stuff, or the guys today, Justin Jefferson. Man, I'm telling you, can make just as many M's backpedaling. Because I'm telling you, you bring that athletic ability to that side, because everybody and mom want to play wide receiver. When you were able to talk to these young guys, like I love that when I heard this high school coach say that we thought that this would be the best place he would be able to get to the next level. I love that. That's that Kirby Smart piece, understanding where you are and assessing the situation and saying, you know what, I know you want to do this, but here's how you can get to the next level. And then you just saw it from like Rashad's sophomore year. You saw he was kind of a little timid, when you watch him on tape, but in that junior year, you start to see that confidence. You start to see him getting up, posing after he making tackles and stuff like that. And you kind of understand, like, okay, I understand why Kirby is after this cat, because he's an athlete, because he can play both sides of the ball. And then, you're going to need that true. I feel like he's a true free safety. He's a guy that can be a ball hawk, obviously with the wide receiver skills, bringing that over to the defensive side of the ball. It just works perfectly. And I think like it's so cool to watch the high school coach being in tune to where this young man is and to be able to get him to a point where he's getting offered by one of the best college football coaches, if not the best college football coaches in the country.
Yeah, it's a tough time right now to try to sell a kid to not be a wide receiver, though, Jarvis. I hear you.
I know. It's real cute. It's cute.
Yeah, like you said, that Jefferson contract. We got a Netflix series. DBs don't have that yet. It's just the wide receivers they're hot right now. Wait till that Lamb contract.
It's sexy. It's real sexy, man.
Speaking of the Cowboys, so they're getting broke off this season right now. But no, this guy, he looks really good. And I know the one that you had sent us from Dog Nation, the article, Tenitra, is his comparison lining up to Keanu Neal. And if if you can get that, I mean, who had a nice NFL career, but I mean, he was electric at Florida. I mean, he would change the game with some of the ways that he hit people. Yeah. I mean, that type of thing. And, when you combine it with the rest of what they have on this defense and some of the coverage ability and the pass rush that we'll talk about, and Michael is, going to be talking today at SEC Media Days. Like it's nice to see that piece, because that's one of those that they haven't had in this group yet. So he'll be a nice addition from that standpoint.
Yeah, nice addition as well. And like we said, we always talk about the defensive front for Georgia and how strong it is. And I think it's just exciting to see that Georgia's able to get what it is that they need from a secondary perspective. And maybe we'll be having this conversation like we've been having about our RBU, running back U, linebacker U. Now we're kind of talking in a minute about DBU. All right, guys, I promise I wasn't just crying because Kirby was so amazing on the podium today. I promise you, it was just a little bit of malfunction on these eyes. So thank you guys for kind of bearing with me there, if you will. Just two more quick mentions that we found out about just today that Kirby and the program made mention of, and that is the dismissal of safety David Daniels-Sisavanh and the medical retirement of O-lineman KJ Smith. So just want to ask you guys real quick, what effect, if any, will this have on the Dogs secondary with the dismissal of Daniels-Sisavanh, and also on the offensive front for not the dismissal, but the retirement actually of Smith?
Yeah, I think this, this is something, we talking about Rashad Johnson, right? Perfect timing, right? Talk about the safety, being added to the DB room. But I think this is something that people probably don't want to pay attention to, because he was a guy that in Atlanta on a led police. That means speed chase to me when you word it like that. So when you talk about doing that type of stuff, essentially evading the police, lets me know that, hey man, you probably do need to go on and reassess things and where you are in life. So yeah, for him to be released from the squad, I wasn't too surprised. And then shout out to UGA for keeping that young man scholarship, and he's going to be a part of the team in a different manner. But he's medically retiring, so yeah, that's really cool to see. I love to see that type of stuff.
Yeah. As far as the grand scheme of thing, not a huge impact on what's going to happen with Georgia and the roster and the development and everything. Like Jarvis just mentioned, open up a spot in that DB room. And then just another piece of just negative news, as there's been kind of a good bit of that this offseason in terms of Georgia, like little ones here and there on top of the Trevor Etienne thing. So yeah. And then the other story, it's always nice to see those kind of things in terms of being able to take care of somebody like that. And this is something that, a program like this is able to do with all the success that they've had, and financially, this is something that you're able to reach out and do it. So it's always good to see that human side of all of this as we talk about numbers and wins and bottom line. So, yeah.
Yeah, you're right. It has to be something serious, because with Kirby Smart, there's always a story of redemption, right? I mean, Jonathan Ledbetter was talking about it very recently, about the opportunity that he had in that program to redeem himself. Obviously, the programs are training Trevor Etienne and so many others. And I'm sure the issue that we know about that didn't necessarily get discussed, like we talked about with Smile Mondon and Bo Hughley, those will be addressed, but we haven't heard anything about dismissal. So we definitely wish that young man well and hope that he can get it together. And shout out to Kirby for always seeing his players. And that's a reminder, when you medically retire someone, that you truly see the human side of your players first. Mm-hmm. Now, guys, a GOAT was actually denied access in Arlington. Woo! Wonder how that happened. We'll talk about it in Next Up. Locked On Sports Today is a free 24/7 sports streaming channel that's programmed for you every day to bring you the biggest stories without all the noise. Locked On Sports Today also brings you can't miss analysis, opinions, and news. Streaming 24/7 on YouTube or the free Amazon Fire TV channels app, part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day. So, guys, we'll get to the GOAT who somehow was out of pocket in a space that he's not accustomed to. But because Kirby Smart mentioned this, I now want to kind of do a little audible and mention this one first because I thought it was hilarious. We know that EA College Football 25 launches worldwide on July 19th. And I asked you guys the question of what you're most looking forward to because the video game has had an 11-year absence. But I thought the story that Kirby Smart told on the podium about the game was hilarious as well. So I don't know about you, BG. Are you excited that it's coming back? Were you amused and entertained by what Kirby had to say?
Yeah, I was. I'm excited. The game in general, it's fun because it just seems like it's like unifying people, right? We got a lot going on that we won't get into in terms of like, political stuff and all of that this year. And it's like, it's just nice when something comes together. Everyone can be like, all right, college football game's coming out. First time in over a decade plus. Like, this is something we could all come together for. And then I don't know if you guys saw yesterday, I was kind of paying attention as it launched, where the EA servers actually went down. So people couldn't play like dynasty mode and things were breaking. So everybody who paid this extra money to hop in and do all this stuff early, they couldn't do all the things they wanted to do, which was a mess. But yeah, no, Kirby's joke about riding in the car with Malachi, Michael, and Carson and those guys and saying like, oh, great, we can go to the store and get the game. And then I'm going, Coach, we don't do that in stores anymore. And he's like, all right, so,
yeah, Coach.
that was just one of those like fun, relatable things for him. But I'm excited to play the game at some point. I won't be buying a new system or anything like that. I can't be forking out $500 for video games, but
BG, that's my conundrum because I'm having all type of nostalgic feelings right now because I'm like, oh man, I remember when my boys and I, up until probably like my early 20s, dude, like we used to go, at midnight and go get the game and just play all night. This was with the Madden, but we used to play college football.
Yeah.
In college, man, oh my gosh, like so religiously. It was really, and maybe may or may not have gambled on it as well. So it was just for me, I'm just like, man, I want to play this game. I want to see how it is. I want to see what the gameplay is like. And I'm just like, oh yeah, your Xbox went out probably about 2 years ago. So that means you got to buy a new system before you even think about buying the game. Oh yeah, like BG mentioned, $500, for a new system. Oh yeah, the game is $70 plus tax. I'm just like, what in the world is going on? That is a lot of monies that I see in my household, in BG, there's a filter. You know what I'm saying? It's like, so it goes wife, kids, some other stuff, then some other mother stuff, and then it's me.
I think it's wife, kids. Maybe a sprinkle Jarvis. Yeah.
House. Then.
Right. Well, I am excited about it because this might be a little bit of a carrot I can dangle for my nephews as I try to get the oldest, because the youngest, he probably won't game with EA, but the oldest will game with EA, right? And he's always asking me if I can buy this game for him or buy that game for him. Yeah, buddy, just get the grades up and sure, you can have CFB 25 as well. So
that man about to get straight A's, T. It's going down.
That's what I'm talking about. I just looked at it as one more opportunity for me to be able to motivate this kid to do well in school.
That's gonna be a big motivation, because it's not only just, and you can string it along too. You can do one for the system, one for the game, the controller, the extra controller, all that sort of a thing. To me, didn't it feel like, and they may have done this, so I might be mistaken, and I know the game officially releases on Friday and they had the early one. Right. But like, how did EA Sports and the SEC not like partner up and do something really big at SEC Media Days for this? Like, why is Carson Beck not playing against Quinn Ewers on a big screen right now? Like, no one really, but it would have been, there was this huge like marketing thing, and they got like Arch Manning to advertise it last minute. I know he's not going, he's a backup quarterback, but like they should have just had more people there. And I know they're going to ask them about the game, but like, have them play the game, like have them interact with it, have a whole thing, like check out. Do these guys like have Carson Beck playing with Carson Beck, asking him about how he feels, how he's, like, how
what about your rating and all that stuff? Yeah, man.
There's so much I feel like, and they've done a good job marketing it and building it up, but I just feel like, man, you had SEC media days here and all the biggest names, right? And I just feel like it was a missed opportunity for them.
So. Yeah, and imagine somebody like Kirby Smart, if they would have done it, say, yesterday, having the opportunity to add to his story today, if he would have been able to play with the guys on the new one and kind of comment on how it felt versus playing on the old one, that would have been another cool storyline.
Yeah, exactly. And like, Kirby, what do you think you look like? Is that visor work? Like that whole, because players are having fun. They're starting to tweet out. Like I saw Jackson Dart definitely does not look like Jackson Dart, and he's like, he was just laughing like a hot, so I just feel like they could have used this week more and done more with it. So.
That would have been really fun. And especially because we know the world that we live in, like those guys probably would have gone IG live with it. And we could have just had a tremendous just time of it. If, we would have been able to kind of see it front and center. But something else that I think all of us kind of chuckled about, and we talk about the differences in this day and age versus that. So when EA college football was out in 2011 or 12 versus here, now we talk about last year's Nick Saban versus this year's Nick Saban. So last year's Nick Saban pulled up on SEC Media Days, and it's like, you know who he is. But this year, poor old Uncle Nick pulled up on SEC Media Days without his credential, and someone had the unmitigated gall, Jarvis, to not allow the GOAT in. How, Sway?
I don't know. I don't know about this with T. I understand, when it comes to rules, because in my previous life, I used to do security at clubs and stuff like that, and bodyguard work and all that. So I understand that whole process and following rules and all that. But one thing that I learned, there are certain people that you have to make exceptions for. Because it's the reason why the SEC is getting all this money from TV deals. It's because of the man who got 7 national championships. Yes. So I think you can make one exception. That's okay. I don't think you'll lose your job for that. So just chill. You're not gonna get a raise, by the way, for enforcing the rules. So man, you make an exception.
You're not right.
Gotta let Saban in for sure. Hopefully, it was one of those funny things where, like, hey, coach, you forgot your credential, and I'm sure that's the other thing that's weird, because it's a lot of the same people that see him there. Still got to just call him coach, because once you're a coach, you're just always coach for the rest of the time. What was so interesting about today was watching, there was a clip that it was actually DJ Shockley tweeted it out, and it was a video of Saban watching Kirby talk, and it was the rest of the SEC network set, and they're all kind of prepping and doing stuff, and Saban's like intently watching Kirby. And up until this year, for however long Saban's been in, 15 years or whatever it was, when he showed up, he was the sheriff, he was the guy. And this is the first time that Kirby's walking in as the guy, the main coach and all of that. So it's weird to see Saban on that angle. And it's going to be weird for a while with that too.
Yeah, it was, but it was also cool because there were moments in the reaction segment after Kirby left the podium where you could see Nick Saban kind of, I don't know if you want to call it proud papa or proud big brother or proud uncle, but just someone who was really proud of seeing someone from his tree be so successful. And it just looked like he had a sense on his face, like the game is in a good place. And the guy who's supposed to be taking it through the next era is indeed doing that. So definitely was kind of cool to see. Just real quick, congratulations to Charlie Condon, who was selected 3rd by the Colorado Rockies in the 2024 MLB draft. We expect to see that dog do big things in the majors. Thanks to our everydayers for making the Atlanta Football Party your first listen of the day. Be sure to also stop by Locked On Bulldogs for your second listen. And of course, be sure to like and subscribe to our YouTube channel. We're free and available wherever you download your podcast, and we will see you Thursday on the Atlanta Sports Party.